Great.
All right. Hey, Vancouver. Welcome back to another episode of Vancouver Real. My name is Mike Zaremba, and always with me is my big brother, Andy.
Hey, everybody. Nice to be back again. We're going on a little podcasting tear over the next 2 days.
Yeah, we got
three podcasts lined up in a row.
Yeah, so that's going to be exciting. But we'll still release them staggered, but just kind of giving you guys a little insight to how we work the show, which is pretty, I don't know, like our conversations, relatively organic. We don't plan. We kind of just line it up when people want to come in, and that's what happens. So as always, we're podcasting here out of Float House at 70 West Cordova Street. This is our mega center, as we call it, as the 9-tank center, the largest in the world in downtown Vancouver, BC. And we also have a 5-tank center in Kitsilano, and also a franchise location in Victoria, BC. There's our cousin Eric was kind of hooked on floating when we introduced it to him, and he's like, you know what, I want to do this in Victoria, so he took it out there. So if you're on the island, go say hi to Eric and check out floating there, and floathouse.ca is our website for all of your flotation and stress management needs. Also, we'll put a quick shout out for Omega Point YouTube channel. Omid, who is our man behind the scenes, who will be coming back to do some episodes with us soon, I hope. He does some of our editing, or at least just splicing things together. We don't really edit the show. We kind of just let it go organically. I don't think we've ever edited. But he has a really cool YouTube channel called Omega Point, where he makes these videos of various speakers and authors and philosophers, and he cuts them all up with images.
Who was that one he had that went pretty viral lately?
That was with Jason Silva.
Yes, Jason Silva.
Yeah.
Kind of an online personality type guy.
Yeah.
Makes these inspirational videos.
Yeah, and it's
Nice.
it's on Jason Silva's channel, which is Shots of Awe. Shots of Awe.
Yes.
And it's a really, if you ever check out Shots of Awe, it's an awesome, like, I don't know, really gets you pumped up to live a full life. It's really, inspirational in that regard. So he did that one with Jason Silva, and it's crushing right now. I think it's well over 100,000 views, and it's
That's
going
impressive.
up. Yeah. So Omega Point on YouTube and on Facebook. And let's get into today. Today we've been working on this one for a while, and I'm super glad we were able to line it up, make it happen. Colin Easton was a mutual friend of ours, or I guess you kind of were introduced to Colin at the TEDx talk at
Nice.
SFU.
That's right.
Today we have Dr. Kasim Al-Mashat with us from SFU. You're a counselor there, and you also have your own you're a registered psychologist.
Yes.
So you have a practice on the North Shore.
Yes.
And just right off the bat, your website is drkasimalmashat.com. It's drkasimalmashat.com. We'll have all the links on our website as well going forward. And on Twitter, it's Kasim_mindful. Kasim, long introduction, but welcome to Vancouver Real.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And
Great to have you on.
Thank you. I wanted to say thank you to Colin Easton, and you beat me to it.
Yes.
Colin's great.
He is great. He really
has
is
been
great.
one of our biggest advocates and supporters. Like, he's always helping us on social media, talking about us, and so big thank you to you, Colin,
Absolutely.
if you're listening.
I forgot which camera to look on.
This is your camera,
This
right?
is me.
There,
Yeah.
Thank you, Colin.
Oh, there we go.
Here you go. Thank you, Colin.
Perfect.
Yeah, his project is wonderful.
Super cool, the Stranger
And,
Project.
I just want to say this before we continue, because my work is in counseling, and the idea of doing something that's opposite to what our body wants to do. So when we're depressed, feeling anxious, we normally isolate. So his project is, redefining, really, and that was the topic of the TED Talk, is redefining the norm.
Right.
I
Is
haven't seen
redefining. Yeah, is actually connecting, even when feeling depressed, connecting to a stranger, and moving outside of our own story.
You know what's so neat about that too is in this city we get so desensitized just to people in general. Just there's so many of us packed in such a small space, so you just pass people and you don't even almost recognize them as like people. They're almost like objects. So for him to go out and talk to random strangers, it's very inspiring just to say, like, hey, everyone's got a story. Everyone's got a life. Remember that when you pass them on the street, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that for me is also the connection of humanity.
Yes.
Because we all have our own story and we feel we're very unique. And we are unique, but there's commonality in all of us. And
Absolutely.
common human experience. And we all have a story of pain and suffering and a story of joy, but we feel disconnected.
Yeah.
And so that's why his work really, when I first heard of it, I was like, that's wonderful.
Yeah, and so just anyone out there, go check out Colin Easton's TEDx SFU talk that
Yes.
he gave. I watched it. He absolutely crushed it. He nailed it.
Yes.
Did an amazing job.
Yes.
And it's an amazing project. And I think we're going to have him on again as well, just because he's kind of, now that he's finished the whole year, his initial goal was, I'm going to talk to somebody new every day of the year. That
Yes.
was 2014. And now that that's wrapped up, he's actually continuing it on with a little different direction, I think. I think they're actually trying to fund actually they did a documentary is going to be
Yes,
made about it,
yes.
which is really cool. So just everyone out there who hasn't seen his episode, we have an episode with Colin and lots of on the go with his project called the Stranger Project. So, very well worth the conversation right now. I mentioned Colin because
Absolutely.
he's what introduced us to you. He's like, you got to
Yes.
get Kasim on. So
And he said the same to me, and he was so, I just had met him, and he was so warm and welcoming, and, he said,
great
no,
guy.
you gotta go check it out. So, okay.
cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So,
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on. And,
Thank you.
Why don't you just kind of start off maybe with what your current position is at SFU and
Yes.
talk about a bit about your practice, and then maybe you can tie in there as well how you got to this role and where kind of some of your history, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So SFU, I actually did my internship, my doctorate internship there, and I was fortunate enough they had a position after I finished,
Cool.
and I stayed and worked with the counseling team. I actually just recently left, so I'm not
okay.
on the
My
team. No, but not a lot of people know that.
Yeah.
So, because I've started my own practice.
Gotcha.
So, but I still do have connections to SFU because I lead laughter yoga, and actually traditional yoga, hatha yoga, in the recreation department. So
great.
I'm maintaining that, and that's just
Excellent.
something that I enjoy doing, but no longer on the clinical team. An incredible team, but I'm stretching my wings to my own
For
practice.
sure.
Yeah.
Cool.
So where I'm at now is in the North Shore, and I do one-on-one counseling and also do groups. And the groups are based, actually I brought you brochures, maybe I'll leave you after.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mindfulness-based stress reduction program, which we can talk about later maybe.
Yeah.
So this is part of my work. Um,
And how did you get to Vancouver? How did you get to? Are you from Vancouver originally?
no, actually. I was born Middle East,
Okay.
born in Iraq, out of
Oh,
all
wow,
places,
cool.
and people get surprised usually, like
I'm-
you don't look. No, not here. I mean, just generally, people
Sure.
are like, you're from Iraq. You don't look like a typical
Yeah.
someone who was born in Iraq.
Yeah.
But I left when I was 5. With my parents, not alone.
That's good.
Yeah,
a big plus.
I decided to leave when I was 5. Yeah,
Yeah. I'm just gonna take
I'm
off.
taking the next flight, Mom.
Yeah,
You know,
see you
it's like,
later.
I'm done.
Taking my blankie and my teddy bear, and I'm out the door.
Yeah.
That's right. And the credit card. Thank you.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, my dad's work he was a diplomat, so we did a lot of traveling and lived in Europe, and then lived in the States, and Canada's been home for most of my life
Cool.
actually.
Are your
So-
parents here as well?
Yes, my parents
Great.
are here, but the rest are everywhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whoever had a chance to leave left. Difficult situation in Iraq for
Oh, for
Yeah.
how long? A long time now.
long time.
Yeah.
Long time. So I have family everywhere.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Which
Cool.
is nice. I
Yeah,
can
for
visit many places around the world. with-
Lots of excuses to travel.
Yeah. Exactly.
Cool.
So
And what was your undergrad in your master's? Was it always in psychology?
no, actually, my first degree was in business,
Oh,
and
okay.
I was at SFU as well, and it was just I did it by way of elimination.
Hmm.
I just wanted a degree to make my parents happy
Yeah.
and get out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't really enjoy it, to be honest with you. I mean, it just got it done,
Yeah.
and worked in marketing and sales, and then found my passion doing volunteer work at a food bank in the North Shore, and
Hmm.
I thought, this is what I would be doing.
Nice.
And
So was it just the charitable nature of it that got you hooked? Like what was it that got you, that what triggered this passion for you? What is it about that kind of work?
Yes, that's a great question because, at the end of the day, I didn't feel fulfilled. Going after the next sale was great, but then what?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I also had the influence of my grandfather who passed away, and he wanted me to be a doctor, a GP.
Okay.
And I resisted that. So it planted the idea of some kind of helping profession, I guess. And I don't know, during that time in my life, I was doing a lot of work on myself, personal development, personal growth, counseling, and how can I live authentically my deepest truth? What's my deepest truth in general, And if I die tomorrow, do I feel fulfilled?
Mm-hmm.
And the answers were no. And, none of us are escaping that reality, but I want to make sure I want to live it fully and in a way that makes a difference with what inspires me.
Yeah. I've noticed that's personally one of the biggest questions that really got me onto my personal growth phase, which is still going on. I don't think once you kind of step into that conscious realm of personal growth and development, like actively seeking out knowledge and learnings and teachings through books or other people, was that question about how do you want to be remembered when you're gone, when you die, And I was presented with this. I was doing a master's degree at UBC and a coaching science program. And we had to do this project to create a coaching philosophy. But in order to do that, we had to first have a life philosophy, because how could you have a coaching philosophy without a life philosophy? You kind of need to have the foundation first. And we were told to read the book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Oh, yeah, Stephen Covey.
Stephen Covey.
Yeah.
And one of the, I think, second or third chapter in there, they're like, how do you want to be remembered when you're gone? And that question really hit home with me. I was just like, I've never thought about that. And I'm just like, how do I want to be remembered? You got to start living your life now with that in mind. Changing your attitudes, your behaviors, your habits. So that was a huge question for me. So I'm not surprised that it seemed to catalyze something in you as well.
Yeah.
So what kind of personal development work did you end up doing?
It started for me actually very slowly. So it started with books. I used to do martial arts, still do, but it was my life then. 18 when I got into it, or 17 and a bit. And I read books, and Bruce Lee was my big inspiration. And started looking into Zen. And one of the books that had an impact on me was Zen and the Martial Arts. And started to speak about the idea of being present in life and empty your cup. And I thought, what does that mean? What do you mean empty my cup? Which cup?
Yeah.
So, and then I had a pretty big life event that happened that was a very big challenge, and it actually led me to do counseling at a young age, and I started to kind of look inward. Especially at that age, for me at least, I was, I had the feeling of entitlement, and why isn't the world giving me what I need? Started to slowly begin look inwards, and what do I want from the world? And what do I want to give actually to the world? A bigger question for me. So it started in that realm, and then just listening to seminars, going to workshops. Wayne Dyer was a big influence for me. I just love his work. Any workshop I could get my hands on, I started going, and I always joke with friends, that's where I spend all my money, really. It's workshops and all the professional training that I've done in my field.
Yeah, those things are.
I could have had a house, but no. I put it there, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah. Well, working on yourself is so important, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's everything, and so many people get stuck in a state of kind of stagnation, I think, in their lives.
Yes.
And they just kind of get into their routines, and they wake up every morning and they have their breakfast, they go to work, they work all day, they come home, they watch TV, they go to bed, and then repeat.
Yes.
And I think that a lot of people are very closed off and like, this is my little world and I'm just going to live in my world. And I think there's something to that too, with having that kind of simplistic lifestyle.
Yeah.
But I think also when you start diving into that world of like growth and personal development, it's a rabbit hole because you just keep going down, like Mike was talking about. You just keep going down that hole, and you know, it never seems to end.
It doesn't. But actually, it feels to me it's a rabbit hole that's going up. So it's a rabbit hole that, you know, it's an ocean that just gets deeper. And the deeper you go into this work, the more fulfilling it is. But the tricky part that sometimes we get caught in is not enough.
That you're not enough.
Yeah, that we're not enough. I have to do this much more.
Yeah.
And this is for me the work of mindfulness that kind of started to influence me. How do we be with who we are now? Actually, embrace and love ourselves as we are now, and still have goals and hopes to grow, change.
Yeah.
But not hating here, because you have to be here to go there, whatever there is.
Yeah.
Well, you know, one of the best teachers out there are, you know, mindfulness or presence, if you want to call it that, would be Eckhart Tolle, for
Yes.
sure.
Oh,
You know,
yes.
he's, you know, famous author on Oprah, you know, is known around the world. And that his book really is what opened me up to it. The book, The Power of Now.
Yes.
I remember reading that book for the first time in Thailand, and there was a moment when I was just lying in that hammock reading that book, and I can't remember exactly what it was that got me. But he said something, and I looked at it as honestly as I could, and I could not dispute what he was saying. I'm like, this is absolutely correct
Yes.
from what I understand things. And from that point on, I was like, wow, this guy really knows what's going on. He knows what he's talking about, you know, about the present moment, living that way, and that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I was going to ask you, that's a kind of good little segue is, you know, you spoke about these mindfulness-based stress reduction programs. To you, and you know, how would you describe someone, what is mindfulness? What does it mean? What is mindfulness? What does that even mean, you know?
Yeah, that's a really great question, because for a long time, until I came across this MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction work, I really grappled, like, how do you define it? What is it? Am I doing it? Am I meditating right? But I really like to use Jon Kabat-Zinn definition, which is actually a working definition used in research, but it's also very practical, which is paying attention in the present moment on purpose and non-judgmentally. Very simple, really very simple. Paying attention on purpose, present moment, right here, right now, but non-judgmentally. And when you apply it to actual meditation practice, it's very, very practical. Now, if you're paying attention to the breath, you're choosing to do it right this moment, not thinking about doing it. And when your mind wanders, you'll have judgments, but letting go of judgments, coming back right here with an intention. So it's like the t-shirts you guys have, which I really love. What is your intention?
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see it on
I'll
there.
get a shot of that really
Yeah,
quick.
yeah.
Is our new float out shirt?
What is your intention?
I really like it, yeah.
Thank you.
So that becomes transferable when we live life that way. So we could be walking down the street and actually enjoying walking down the street. From sight, sounds, the moment, that present moment, our mind will wander, but actually come here, be here. Conversations, I mean, happens to all of us, even right now. You know, when we're talking, your mind will naturally have a thought, you know, about what you want to say next, or, oh, I agree, or, what is he saying about that? Interesting. You know, whatever it is, you'll have thoughts, and whoever's listening, right? So it's natural, but how do we work with it so it doesn't rob us from living here?
Right.
Because so many times you're talking with people and they're like, but thinking about lunch and, you know. So
Think about what to say next, even.
so exactly, how to be more and more present by choice. And it also means that we can by choice plan when we want to plan. So you know, some people get confused. Does this mean I stop thinking about the future? Like, how do I live? No, think about the future. But consciously, you're choosing. Like right now, I'm planning my day tomorrow. You sit and plan it.
Yes.
Not while you're watching a movie that, you know, you paid how much for, going out with friends, you're organizing, and in the movie you're thinking about tomorrow.
Exactly.
You know?
That's one of the beautiful things about the float tank. And
Hey.
because of the reduction of sensory input coming in,
Yes.
you're really just focused in on your thoughts in your mind and what's happening there. And you'll be in the tank for a 90-minute session, and you'll be trying to be present, going into your body, feeling your body from the inside, whatever, and all of a sudden, a little thought comes up, and it takes you, well, my brother and I call them like thought journeys.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, you're thinking about things that are just completely off of, in left field, and you're like, how did I even get there?
Right.
Then you pull it back and be like, nope, bring it back in. But it's just so interesting how the mind will just wander off into different places, and you're not really paying attention to what you're really doing or what's around you at the time. And that's, again, with the float tank, it really does highlight that when you go in there.
Yes.
You see that very clearly.
Yes. I mean, that's really, what you're describing with the tank, the float tank. Is that what you guys call it, the float tank?
Yeah,
It's a float tank, yeah.
Float tank.
Float tank. Similar with meditation is you're really beginning to tune in inwards, right? And, when you go to a meditation retreat, they take away outside stimulus, music,
Think of Vipassana.
Vipassana, right?
Speaking,
writing, all of
It's a
that.
deprivation.
Yes. So you can actually go inwards. And you get to see the true nature of the mind.
Yeah.
Loves to wander.
Yeah.
But, I find it really unfortunate that many people suffer so much thinking they're alone. Like, it's only my mind. It's just me that have negative thoughts. And it's unfortunate because once you get to know it and you guys have experienced it, even in the float, you're like, wow, these are thoughts come in. Whether I'm a good person or not, these thoughts come in.
That's right.
Sometimes surprisingly, like.
Are you talking about your own thoughts?
Our own thoughts.
And being judgmental of your thoughts and what you're thinking about?
Exactly, and also judgmental thoughts about others. When
Sure.
you even don't mean it, you have thoughts, you're like, wow, did I really think that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Well, did you say on I watched your TEDx SFU talk, so
Yes.
just out there actually, Kasim did an awesome TEDx
Thank
talk.
you.
It was really good. Like,
Thank you so
really
much.
clear. It was awesome. And I think you were saying on there how is there an evolutionary reason of why we have negative thoughts?
yes,
Can you go into that a little bit?
yes,
Explain that?
absolutely. So in evolutionary psychology, they speak about it as a negativity bias.
Okay.
So we have the fight or flight.
Yeah.
They've added a component freeze now. Fight,
Oh.
flight, freeze.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Which is a natural mechanism to help us deal with danger.
Right.
So this mechanism is on the lookout for danger. So, I mean, even if you're walking down the street and you hear a sound that you think is dangerous, you're going to pay attention to it. More than if you hear a sound of a beautiful bird. Because
It's not
to survive,
Well, we are hardwired to survival.
exactly.
Right?
So,
Interesting.
I'd rather pay attention to this alley than this beautiful bird.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so we have that negativity bias, and Dr. Rick Hansen actually says it beautifully. Neuropsychologist, he says our brain latches on to negatives like Velcro.
Hmm.
I just love that, the description. We just hang on to it.
Yeah.
And good things, well, we don't pay attention that much, so it slips away.
Yeah.
Like
It's true.
Teflon fabric. So it's helpful, but also the problem is the stress response gets triggered with everything now. Presentations, going to a meeting, traffic, argument with someone, and that stress response gets triggered. The physiological impact, the negative impact on the body is still the same. Adrenaline gets kicked in. It's helping us to fight or flight, but we don't need it. So that's the wiring that we have.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. And that's the thing, your thoughts will happen, regardless. And with that negative bias, yes, now don't need to focus, we have our minimum level of survival met. We have shelter, we have
Yes.
food. There's no wild animals roaming around
That's
that could get us
right.
or something like that, right? So, but yet we still have these mechanisms in action all the time.
Yes.
And they're triggered not only just by external things, like your mind will trigger it. It's like you'll start thinking about the presentation that you're doing in a week or two or something like
Yes.
that. And then just your mind, just by thinking about it, can trigger the stress response.
Absolutely.
And so it doesn't even take anything. You could be on the most beautiful beach in the world, sipping a margarita or whatever, and then you have that negative thought, and you'll have this adrenaline stress response happen.
Absolutely.
And I think this is where the practice of mindfulness probably comes into play.
Yes.
Right? So it's like something that, and can you talk a little bit about the practice itself and what is it actually doing? What's how does it work? What's the mechanism behind this type of technique?
Absolutely. One of the things, you're just saying about the thoughts we have, the stress we have. The first thing that, a lot of research has been done on is, they call it rumination in the research, this kind of the constant worrying and ruminating over something that happened.
That's like the traction part.
Yeah,
Right?
Exactly.
It's so sticky and repetitive.
And the challenge is it gets stronger the more we do it. That's the way our neurons work.
Mm-hmm.
The more they fire, the stronger they get. Especially if they're wiring around the same time. So we're always thinking about the same thing, we're stressed about the same thing. Stronger wiring. So one of the research, I can't remember actually this latest one I was looking at was in Toronto, but they were looking at, there's two neural systems in our brain around experience. So one is the story, the narrative, the me. And this is kind of more experience in the prefrontal cortex, so kind of up over here.
Okay.
And there's the experiential network, neural network, which is more peripheral, this part of the brain. So when we're caught in the me, why is this happening to me? I can't believe this is happening. The story of me. We are not in the experiential network, so we are lost in thoughts. And the wandering mind just gets triggered, spins.
Mm-hmm.
Mindfulness actually activates this other part, the neural pathways that are related to experience, sensations. So if you've done Vipassana or any form of meditation or even float here, you become more aware of sensations.
Yes.
That's the experiential network
Cool.
in the brain. So this is in terms of actual networks in the brain. The research is actually incredible on the structural changes that happen in the brain. So, there's the amygdala, the part that's in charge of the stress response we're talking. So even with 8 weeks of practice, the size of amygdala, which is like an almond shape, actually gets smaller.
It physically gets smaller.
Yes, the structural changes, and they do that with functional MRIs. They do, before and after, and so the size of that shrinks. And sometimes people worry. Actually, they ask me, "Does that mean if danger happens that I'm not scared anymore?" No, actually, you'll still be scared, but you have more presence, more awareness, instead of getting triggered and going into reaction mode.
Mm. Right? Cool.
Well, I wonder if that's where people, you said, will freeze
Yes.
as well. Because they get so scared, they just freeze up and don't know what to do. Could that be part of it, or is that something different?
Yes, absolutely, because the brain just gets overwhelmed, and it shuts down. So we don't know what else to do. And if you look even, at Discovery Channel or some kind of animal channel, and you watch an animal that's being chased, and there's a moment that's just gonna, run away or fight or actually not move.
Well, deer caught in headlights, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
And we all have our own patterns, actually. So if you think of, something stressful has happened in your life, and you trace back, how did I react? Did I just kind of want to fight with that? Did I want to just avoid it and run away? Or I didn't know what to do?
You know where I find happens to me sometimes personally is when, if I feel, I guess, stressed or fearful, sometimes I freeze up and I can't speak or articulate things properly.
Yes.
Is that kind of the same thing going on
Yes, absolutely. So here's the thing. What happens when this system gets activated, the stress response, which is opposite to the relaxation response, which you guys help people with, right?
Yeah.
So the stress response, what it does, think about if you're trying to run, where does the blood need to go? It has to go to the leg. Yes. And if you need to watch where you're sprinting to, you're going to have tunnel vision. Now, if you just had a meal, the body's saying, who cares? I'm going to worry about digesting. I'm going to die. Something's chasing me. So all the blood starts running to the peripheries, right?
That's why you can get sick.
Once you get sick, that's why concentration drops. We can't think because that's not in the system. That's not relevant. It's not relevant anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
Cool.
So it's very it's a natural reaction that happens physiologically.
Right.
You know?
And it makes sense. Actually, there's a really good book. I listened to the audio version of it a while ago called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers.
Yes.
Have you ever read that one?
Yes.
And he talks about the same thing. So if you have food in your stomach, of course, you're going to get rid of that food so you can actually get away from the situation.
Yes.
Or if you have something in your bowels that needs to come out
Yes.
too. And hence the phrase shitting yourself.
Yes.
That's where it comes from, right? Because you literally
right.
get so scared you shit yourself because it doesn't matter at that point anymore. All your focus is just getting away or fighting potentially,
Yes.
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's kind of the body becomes, maybe highly revved up is a good word to use, right?
Yeah.
Highly revved up to survive, but the cost is quite heavy if we sustain that. You probably heard the term, if something happens and shocks you, like, man, that took a couple of years out of my life,
Right.
right? And
Well, it might have actually.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Some interesting research is happening on epigenetics, and they're looking at meditation, mindfulness meditation particularly, and the effect it has on the telomerase on the chromosome, the end of chromosome, and how actually stress degenerates it quickly. It's the protective cap at the end of a chromosome. So they've noticed actually with meditation is you slow down the degeneration of this chromosome, the telomerase, the ends, which means more longevity.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So
Would that play out as well in the aging process, do you think?
yes, absolutely.
I want to say Joe Rogan because he talks about this sometimes. He'll talk about how how president will get into power.
Yes.
They'll look youthful, they'll look healthy, they'll look good. And at the end of their 4-year term, they look like they've aged 10 years. So is that a real thing, do you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's there's part of the brain they call the gray matter, and they've done a lot of research on that too. There's more gray matter. More gray matter is good in the brain. So with meditation, when we increase the relaxation response, when we are able to be more present with the good and the bad, without triggering the stress response, we actually have more longevity.
Right.
I mean, this is besides the immune system and all that, but yeah.
Interesting. I wonder why this research isn't kind of more out there. People aren't really aware of this a lot. I'd say in the mainstream population, in the yoga community,
Yes.
meditation, whatever, it's definitely there. But in terms of mainstream population, it's not even thought of or
Yeah.
barely even discussed.
I think you could say that it's being popularized more now. You see, various news are putting, the odd story, publications in newspapers, magazine articles and stuff like that. But, this is just the early stage of getting the information out there to people.
Yes.
Like, this is what the research is showing now. And before, like, for example, physical activity. You go back 3-4 decades, 5
Yes.
decades, physical activity wasn't that important either because, one, they were doing a physically active job. And like, if you're coming from an agricultural background, you're not gonna
Need to go to the gym after you plow the fields all day long, right?
But as the office culture kind of moved in and all that kind of stuff, then people started to become less healthy. Then the late 70s, 80s, 90s, you start seeing this huge fitness kick, and fitness.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So the stress management knowledge that's coming out now. It's just going to take some time to get some traction. I think, your practice, I think our business, I think the popularity of yoga studios, which is kind of a hybrid of physicality and mindfulness. If you're doing yoga, I think, with that kind of intent, these are all indicators that it's going in the right direction, but it just takes a little bit of time. And this stuff is not easy. It's just like exercise. Like that first time you go work out, one, you're uncoordinated, you're out of shape, you're dying.
It doesn't really feel good the next day, probably, right?
Not at all.
And then
painful.
Yes.
You're gonna go and try to do your first mindfulness meditation sitting or whatever, or even your first float, and it can be uncomfortable. It can be a little unease at first because it's just completely different, very different situation to put yourself in, right? So
absolutely.
So it's deterring if you sit down and you're like, oh, I'm not gonna do this, and then you go and watch a movie or something. But so it's gonna take some time, I think. But I mean, in your perception, do you think, what would you say the kind of state is? Do you I mean, you're out doing your own practice now. For one question, is it growing? Is the awareness growing? Are more people seeking someone like you out for help?
The demand for it is there.
Oh, sure.
It's also being reflected in the research, over the last 5-10 years. Actually, more of the last 5 years, where it has gone exponential. So I think we all intuit there's something that we need to do to work with these demands of daily life that has become just, the rat race life. And no time to think, no time to stop and breathe. So people want it, but I really like how you linked it to exercise, because same thing when it started. It's like this, fluffy stuff.
Yeah.
How is that going to help me? So ultimately, people want change. How bad do they want change? How committed are they? And it may not be pleasant right away.
It's interesting too.
Right? So
yeah, that you say that. I mean, it's kind of against the times in terms of what our societal norms are. In fact, there was that famous Time magazine cover. Remember when I think it was during the Egyptian revolution. Time magazine all over the world had this cover photo. It said like revolution. You saw this guy, with a mask, and they're overthrowing Egyptian government, right?
Yes.
And then the Time magazine for North America, the only one in the whole world, had a picture of a guy like kind of stressed out, and the title of the magazine or on the cover was "Anxiety is good for you." And I was just wondering, it's so interesting to see that Time magazine would have that one image on everywhere else, but in North America they had this different image of anxiety is good for you.
Were they being sarcastic or something?
I don't remember, but that was the title. And it got there was a lot of stuff online about it. Like they showed the side-by-side comparisons. They were like, rest of the world, North America. This is what we're getting fed. And it feels like it's against the mainstream. Like if you look at the way our culture is, there's a coffee shop on every corner. A place that's going to deliver you a stimulant.
Yes.
Why? Keeps you going. Keeps that hamster wheel running, keeps the work going. And it's something that's been legislated into the workplace as well. It's it's like the coffee break, It's kind of like, I don't think they'd ever have a marijuana break. I don't think that would actually happen in the workplace.
Or a meditation break.
Or a meditation break. No, it's the coffee break.
Yes.
I guess now it's just a break and you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
But I guess the whole thing is they want you to be productive, and I think I feel like it was kind of is against, what capitalism is and North America is against production. Because if you're actually taking time and slowing down and maybe working less, that's not a good thing for the economy as a whole, anyways.
But here's sorry, God.
Oh, I was just going to say in response to that, but you're starting to see some really progressive companies, offer these meditation breaks and encouraging people to work less, because I think they see how if someone's not stressed, then they're potentially going to be in this more creative mindset.
Oh, yeah.
So who knows what potential fruitful invention or idea or creation could come from that person just being a little bit more relaxed, and then they have that new novel idea that becomes, because ideas are money, you know. If you have the right idea and you can make it happen, you know, and you never know when that next idea is going to come along. So but you're right, I think the vast majority is this very stimulated culture, you know, very short attention span, and
Very.
yeah.
And what you're speaking about too is creating a little more space in our life and in our brain too, where we get to have ideas. And the interesting thing, you know, you're saying about productivity, you know, the coffee break, wanting us to be more productive. But really, we're overstimulated. But by taking a break, we can be more productive, like a meditation break. And they've done research on that too.
Right.
Improves concentration, productivity. They even done some research on some MBA students and improved grades. You know, because your retention is better, your ability to concentrate is better. But you have to take the time to do that, and that's where it stops people. It's like, I don't have time.
Yes.
And I encourage them, whichever meditation they do or float, if I don't have time for a float, whatever it is when you take the time, you'll have more space in your day. When you take the time that you don't have, you'll have more space in your day. You can breathe better, you can think better.
Well, you're going to be more productive, essentially. If you're not, you know, if you're burnt out all the time, how much are you really going to accomplish anyways? And the quality.
No, exactly.
And the quality of your work, yeah, you're right. The quality is going to go down.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, that's interesting that it's a kind of interesting phenomenon that we experience at Float House. And, you know, one of the more common reasons why people don't come in often is that they don't have the time.
Yes.
And, you know, it's just 90 minutes, even once a month or even once a week.
Yeah.
You know, 90 minutes. But it seems like for some people, it seems like a really long time.
Yes.
You know, and it may be relatively to what we're used to. I mean, we're in this kind of like, you know, 30-second soundbite kind of world that's we've been conditioned to from TV and everything like that. But I mean, it's so good for people. And like when you come out of the tank, you just feel rejuvenated. You know, you feel totally rejuvenated. You feel a couple times a week, and like your stress response just goes right down. You know.
Well, it's retraining the body, retraining the brain how to be. And when people are stuck in a certain pattern, as destructive as it is, it's home. So they're used to, it's comfortable. This is what's the norm.
Yeah.
The challenge I think we all face, you know, in trying to support people, find ways to relax, is people look for a quick magic pill. You know, I don't want to spend more than 2 minutes. Fix me. You know.
Yeah.
And it takes persistence. It takes patience. Whatever it is, you got to keep doing it over and over. In time, you may not get results, but the seeds you're planting, you know, I love this metaphor. A lot of meditation master uses. You're just planting a seed. And then you water it. You provide the right conditions. Actually, Thich Nhat Hanh, Zen master in France, Plum Village, he's from Vietnam, he speaks about that. He says you have to provide the right conditions. But we can't force the seeds to grow. You got to do your part patiently, water it, provide the conditions, and wait.
And you know, it's again coming back to Mike's example with exercise.
Yes.
You know, if you're in the fitness world, if you exercise regularly, go to the gym, go to yoga, go outside and hike, you feel like there's a large group of the population that's actually doing that. You think, wow, everyone's doing this. But in reality, most people are not doing that, right? Because you're right, it's not comfortable. You know, it's not necessarily easy. Once you get conditioned to it, then it becomes really enjoyable.
Yes.
Same with meditation. Right. I think it was a yoga teacher a while ago was just speaking about how meditation has a very high dropout rate. You know, because you're not going to see those instant results, like you were saying. That pill you're going to take and fix me in 2 minutes. Yeah. It's not there.
No. It actually, what you're speaking about is something that, that's one of the reasons this MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction program, was actually developed in the Faculty of Medicine,
Wow.
medical school at University of Massachusetts, Boston, Center for Mindfulness. And they realize it actually takes persistent practice to create change, and change does really happen. But the problem is, like you said, that the dropout is people don't realize, wait a minute, I have to do work. And the shift that they've created now, and it's booming in the States, is we're calling it participatory medicine. It's a new paradigm in medicine, because how do you participate in your own healing?
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Instead of just going to someone and saying, fix me. Participatory medicine. You take charge of your well-being. And yes, include your doctors and your professionals. But what are you doing outside that time with them? Take care of
It's
yourself.
an interesting phrase, participatory medicine.
Yes.
And that can extend to so many things. Are you getting proper sleep? Are you
Yes.
exercising? How's your diet? Are you managing your stress levels? Are you not drinking alcohol very often? Are you not smoking?
Yes.
That would all kind of encompass your participatory, healthcare program.
Yes.
You know,
Absolutely.
what are you doing to maintain your own health? It's what puts a lot of responsibility back on the person. Are you eating good foods? Are you eating fast food every day? Or are you eating lots of healthy organic vegetables? Kind of the same idea, I think.
But
yeah.
so, yeah.
Yeah, I think that kind of highlights a common problem, a thread that's I think permeated a lot of Western culture is this notion of infantilization, like how we're kind of babied, like we're like, well, fix me, daddy,
Yes.
fix me, doctor, or the government, fix this government, you know what I mean? Where if you want to see change, like we're seeing it on the micro level with an individual's health, well, then you have to make the change. You have to do the responsibility. You have to participate to make it happen. And I think that could be, personally, I think that could be extrapolated to every element of our civilization, probably. Like saying relying on an authoritative figure to make the change you want to see just by requesting it, it's not going to happen. I think if you want to see a change, then you need to get involved. You need to go out there and join an organization that has the same vision as you and go and do it. I think there's an underlying thing to all that.
Potentially, and that could come very well back to just education and what we're being educated about. We have these state-run education systems for most of our lives, and are they really going to start teaching us things that are along those lines? Because if people don't know, how are they ever going to make the change in the first place? And on the second point I was going to make too was the whole instant gratification thing. We want things now. We want them to happen, and we want them to happen now. And it takes time. Like, I think if we can start teaching people more delayed gratification. Some people have that, and some people can work towards goals, but a lot of people, they just, want what they want, and they want it now, and if they don't get it right now, they throw in the towel.
Yeah.
It's
It's unfortunate, but very true.
Yeah.
Very true, actually. There's an interesting TED Talk. I'm trying to remember the name of a person. I watched it a while ago. And what they did is they had kids, ages 8 to 12 or something like that. And they gave them marshmallows. And they said, if you wait, you've seen this?
I've heard this one, yeah.
It's wonderful. If you wait, they gave them a certain time, 15 minutes or so. Can't remember the exact time, but if you wait, we'll give you 2 marshmallows, or you can eat 1 now. And
how'd that go?
Most of them did eat it. But here's what they found is that they followed them. They did longitudinal study. The ones that actually, this is really cool, the ones that had delayed gratification had more success in life. So they had better grades as we grew up.
Right?
Cool.
Yeah. Do you have any idea of the numbers? What percentage of children actually waited and which ones ate right away?
I'm remembering something about a 2/3.
ate right away.
Yeah,
The
2/3.
majority ate right away.
Yes, majority did eat right away.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But that shows you even that. So that the thing that's so cool about that study is it highlights children.
Yes.
So we know this kind of conditioning is happening very early on. You know, because that's a very programmable response. Like we could teach people the value of delayed gratification and to just wait to get more in advance. So it's obviously being taught somewhere along the line, very, very early on in our development, it seems like, you know. So that's fascinating. It's such a cool study.
It is.
Yeah.
It's quite incredible because it taps into also this idea of willpower. You know, and you know, some people say, "Oh, well, I don't have willpower." Well, it's like a muscle too. How are you
100%.
training willpower? You know, what are you doing to help your brain develop that? And that will help with addiction. There's actually an interesting book, the Power Factor, just came out actually.
Cool.
Or willpower, yeah, just looking at willpower and also linking it to meditation, which was interesting. How do you develop it through meditation, mindfulness? You know?
Right.
Yeah. And I just want to make a quick comment too, because you were talking a lot about the practice and the consistency and how important that is. I just got back from a retreat I did in December, and since then I've always knew I should be doing a daily meditation thing. And since I got back from this retreat, I've been doing it, you know, a couple times, like 2 days in a row, 3 days in a row, then a couple days off, and then a couple days on and a couple days off. And I noticed like I really enjoyed doing it, but it wasn't until the last couple of weeks where I really started to get dedicated and go every single day, every single morning. And now that there's this momentum going, I'm finding it's weird. It's like feeding into it, and I can't stop now. Like if I don't do it, I'll be upset. Not upset, but you know, I'll just.
But
be
you
like,
feel a difference.
Absolutely, I feel the difference, and that's the biggest thing. I'm starting to see how that consistent, built-up practice, like an exercise or anything else, you know, it really does build upon itself. It's just, you're adding this millimeters at a time, but over time, that's a centimeter, that's a decimeter, that's a meter. You know?
And kind of like what you said too is if you're training your neurons to fire that way, you know, it becomes a habit. Like I don't know, I'm not sure what the rule is, but I've heard somewhere that it takes 21 days to develop a habit or something like that. Is that true?
You know, this is really interesting because the research is mixed on the exact days, and they found it depends on what it is you're trying to change and who the population too. So I think it's become very well known, kind of general thing. People say, you know, 21 days, but research is a little mixed on that. Some things take 60 days. Some things take 2 weeks. But the idea, I guess, is to return to the practice, whatever the practice is. If someone doesn't want to do mindfulness, if they're doing yoga, or if they're doing whatever it is they're doing, return to the practice. Often people, they fall off, and then there's the story. Oh, look at me, I'm failing at doing this. This is not for me, I can't do it, and now I have to do it perfect. And then people go the other extreme. If I don't do it perfect at the exact time, every day I'm failing. Right?
Yeah.
And, you know, the teachings really on mindfulness is brought from Buddhist practices. You don't have to be a Buddhist to practice mindfulness. But the idea of the middle way, you know, not living on extremes, just middle way. You stop meditating, just come back.
Because then people do overcompensate, right?
Yes.
They'll start going to really extreme things for diet, and that's where things like anorexia come from, like really OCD-related type of, you know, diseases. You know, so you completely fall off the rails, you don't do it at all, or you become so obsessed with it that you can't not do it, and if you don't do it, you get really upset too, right?
But see, that's the thing, is if we go back to the definition of mindfulness, is employing that non-judgmental part, you know.
That's hard.
It's very hard. But people mix it with not caring. You know, like, so I didn't do it, big deal, I'll just stay on the couch today. You know, I won't move, I won't even go to work. No, we're not saying that, but don't beat yourself over it. That's what most people do. Today, I couldn't meditate, I couldn't do yoga. It's okay. Come back tomorrow.
Yeah.
A month passes, it's okay, come back tomorrow. Just keep coming back. Whatever you're doing, keep coming back.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it's a lot, thinking of it as a long haul lifestyle.
Yeah.
Linking to the exercise you spoke about.
Yeah.
It's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
Let's include helpful things that support our well-being in a lifestyle, not as a quick fix.
Yeah. No, I think that's awesome.
That's
I love
sustainable.
That middle way. I've heard that before, and every time I hear it, I'm like, I got to remember that. Like, I got to consciously remember that, because it's so true. Finding that middle way, and I think personally, I kind of do that as a balance. I think I recognize on some level that I'm getting too far out one way or the other, and try to bring myself back. But I think it's probably an awesome reminder for most people out there, consciously, if you're listening to this,
Yes.
think about that middle way a little bit more.
Everything in moderation,
Yes.
right?
Even
Including
moderation.
moderation.
Yeah,
That's the fun part. Yeah, you gotta let loose sometimes. Go have that burger. Go to that.
Go strap on that squirrel suit and jump out the helicopter.
Yeah.
Screaming thousands. I saw
Whatever you
this
gotta do.
crazy video today. These guys, they had the GoPros on, and they were up in this helicopter, who knows how high. 3 of them with the squirrel suits on. They all jump out, and the back one's filming the other 2. My heart was pumping watching the computer screen. It was crazy, these guys. So, you get people doing the extreme of the extreme, and it's all part of the dance of life.
That is.
It's the spice, so you can add some cayenne pepper some days.
Yeah, those suits look intense.
Oh
That's
my
for
They
God.
sure.
do.
Yeah,
That's
it's crazy.
scary.
That's
right. Dangerous,
I mean,
but-
I'm sure you have to be pretty fully present. Talk about
Yeah,
mindful in
yeah.
those moments.
Well, same with like martial arts, for example, too.
Oh yeah.
My brother and I, we both did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for
yeah.
a while. And we would,
Great.
and when you, especially, class is one thing when you're practicing and you're rolling around. It's kind of fun. You're there,
Yes.
but it's forgiving, But when you do a tournament,
Yes.
that's when it becomes completely unforgiving. And
Yes.
I guarantee you, when you're in that tournament, you're not thinking about anything else other than exactly what's going on right there.
Absolutely.
Or if you are, you won't be in that tournament for very long,
No.
Very
true.
Yeah.
Very true. And that's kind of really what has inspired me to keep doing the mindfulness practices, besides all the benefits we can speak about, is when I sit on my cushion, is to be fully awake. I mean, they call mindfulness a wakeful practice, to be awake and aware in our lives. So when we're doing everything else, martial arts, conversation, how can we be awake in those moments, to be fully present and have our life be a practice? So sitting on the cushion or chair, some people can't sit on a cushion, serves being awake in life.
Sure.
So it's not just, I did my 30 minutes, I did my 1 hour meditation, now I go back to my stressful life. A lot of people do that, including me. It took me years before I realized it's just not another thing I have to put a checklist on. I did my meditation, great, now I'm back, back to stress.
Back to my emails, back to whatever.
It's like, how do I maintain this quality of awareness, of presence, of breathing through this moment by moment life that's unfolding, that's actually going to end one day for all of us. How do we fully and live our truth, wherever that is? If it is, for me, like I said earlier, finding my field. Somebody might be, their passion is music, or it might be marketing, actually, and they're creating incredible work. Whatever it is,
I was going to ask you, and maybe this is just a coincidence, or maybe this is a technique that you consciously do with your email.
Yes.
I'll send you an email, and then I get an automatic response saying, within 48 hours, I'll reply.
Yes.
Is that because you're just bombarded with so many emails, or is that because you purposely kind of give yourself that space just in case you need it? Are you creating space with that auto email, is my question.
You tapped into my mind and heart. Yes, it's actually both.
Cool.
So it's the combination of, emails come in sprouts, and sometimes it's, you can just sit on the email all day. But also there's this need for instant reply to everything.
Yes.
And if it's urgent, it's one thing. But it's space. I want to live my life with space. Excuse me, I keep
That's
reaching
okay.
for this because
Yeah, I'll move the camera for you there.
recovering from a cold a week ago.
Yeah, so am I. It's going around.
That's right.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I think it's interesting too because now, especially with emails, I do notice. I don't know about you, but I can kind of notice tones in emails when people are writing, and if you don't respond within a certain time, I think they get a little bit upset sometimes, or some people do. And I think it's a good practice to have that auto response email saying I'll get back to it in 48 hours, because then you're kind of deconditioning them that they're going to get a response immediately from you.
yes.
You know, so it's training them like, yeah, he'll respond, you know, but just be a little bit patient. It's coming.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, this is the double-edged sword of technology.
Yeah.
You know, the we can work anywhere on the planet.
Yeah.
Right? Almost, as long as there's connection.
Yeah.
But also it blurs boundaries. Like we've lost a sense of boundary. Yeah, it's just not healthy. We need to have, you know, space to go.
And coming back
Yeah.
to that notion too of like, if it is an emergency, call me.
Yeah.
Like if it's really that urgent, pick up the phone and call me.
Yes.
You know. So I'll experience sometimes like a kind of a desperate email. Can you get this done today? And I'm like, no. Or I miss it completely. I don't even see the email.
Yes.
You know. But yeah, pick up the phone.
Yeah.
Give me
Well,
a call.
I think that's one reason why this kind of business, the Float Tank Center, helps people with that a little bit, because you know, you're getting yourself away from your distractions, from home, from the computer, from your cell phone even.
Yes.
You know, you're literally taking off all your clothes. You have nothing, and you're taking nothing into that tank for 90 minutes. So you're creating a physical barrier. And then also even on that, like we were talking about earlier when I was explaining to you the stimulus barrier, like you're blocking out all the synthetic noises of cars and lights and not noises of lights, but all the lights, the sounds, the things. Unless you're in nature all the time, then I think living in an urban environment, it inherently kind of gives you this, I don't know, energetic edginess almost. You know what I mean? Like I personally, I have no desire to live downtown Vancouver or downtown anywhere. I had a girlfriend, my ex-girlfriend, she lived downtown, and I remember staying over at her place, and there's just always a constant hum and a noise. And I'm sure someone from, a more rural environment would say that about my apartment in North Van. They'd be like, oh, it's so loud here. But, for me, North Van is definitely still quieter from downtown,
Yes.
But just creating that very physical separation, it's a good tool. Again, if you fall victim to these things, maybe try to explore techniques to help you. And that's what I want to ask you. Do you have any little tips or techniques that that maybe you suggest to people that are struggling with these types of things? Like, what do you recommend to people that's someone that's struggling with, I just can't get into the habit? What do you say to advice you give to somebody like that?
Just taking small steps. Sometimes we put so much pressure on ourselves that, I'm going to change everything quickly, or I'm not going to try. But the biggest thing is just take one small step, whatever it is. If trying to sleep better, try tonight sleeping 10 minutes earlier. Is that too much? Start 5 minutes earlier. Just simple steps. Exercise. I can't exercise. Can you go for a 10-minute walk once? Can you slowly increase it to twice? So whatever it is, start slow.
Yeah.
Because that becomes sustainable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I listened to a podcast recently with Tim Ferriss, and he mentioned that. He'll put these little quotas or goals for himself, but he makes it like ridiculously easy. Like just as long that way and if he goes beyond that, great. You know what I mean? But he'll just make them really, really easy, really simple, that takes minimal effort.
Yes.
Because then I think there's something about just the act of doing it. Even if you sit down for a 5-minute meditation, 2-minute meditation, at least you did the act of doing it. And if you can do that a couple times, it will kind of it builds something up already. It's building up the muscle of doing.
Mm.
You know what I mean? I don't know.
The other thing it does, really, it's like a T-shirt you guys have. It's making your intention, you're externalizing your intention.
Right.
So you're giving feet to your intention. So even if it's a small feat, we're taking small steps, but you're actually bringing it to life, and that's really important.
It's really powerful.
Very powerful, because it was just an idea, and now you're doing something about it.
Cool.
So in that moment, you're beginning to create shift. But I would just encourage people to be patient. Patient just takes time and persistent.
Yeah.
Time and persistence, small steps.
Cool.
Small
Awesome
steps.
advice. I think that's
Yeah.
huge.
I just had a quick question for you, because you're sorry, I don't want to. We should probably end it up pretty soon, so we don't get a parking
Yeah, but
ticket.
good.
You're in
Go ahead.
Gastown.
Just
they're
observe a ticket. Observe the sensations
Not
that
reacting.
arise and the heat in
When
the
you
body.
When you see him writing the ticket, now that's the practice right there.
That's right.
Yeah. But what's your take on? It keeps popping on my radar. I'm actually listening to an audiobook on it now on NLP or neuro linguistic programming. What do you know about that? What's your take on that, or do you have anything to say about it at all?
It's actually something that is very interesting. I don't have a lot to say in terms of the research end of it, but I know of a lot of people have used it and found it beneficial. I guess for me, the reason I haven't, because going into my field in counseling psychology, and we're always looking for evidence-based approaches. And so, in counseling itself, that's not the typical thing that comes up. It doesn't mean it's not helpful or it's not effective, but it's not an area that I really know a lot about.
Okay.
Research and or I've used.
Yeah, but
it's
keep popping
fascinating.
up, and a lot of people just
Yeah.
keep. I hear it, NLP, and a lot of it had to do with from what I've read about and heard about so far is just like visualization techniques. You know, what they'll talk about is like if you have a problem in your life, one technique they'll use is picture that problem in your mind's eye, and then kind of in your mind's eye push it away from you, push it far away, make it dark, make it gray, make it undesirable looking. And then the change that you want to make in your life, bring that up in focus, so you're kind of playing with images in your mind and bring that in focus, see it in vivid detail, see it in color, good feelings surrounding around it. And this is what they say is going to program you, NLP, the programming aspect of it, to actually make that change in your life. So you're making the habit, whatever it is that you don't like or don't want, you make it far away. And this is what they say is actually going to train your subconscious to be more likely to do that positive thing that you want. Does that make any sense?
It does, actually. I mean, the brain is really powerful with visualizing.
Yeah.
And they've done a lot of work with astronauts on that, preparing physiologically. How do you visualize you're in space, and how do you visualize, athletes use it. So visualization is very powerful.
Right.
And as you're describing it, it's another form of paying attention, really, another form of focusing your mind with an intention on something. So it's something actually that I've been curious about, and for some reason my path has taken me
Right.
to other
and
things.
this has popped up in my radar the last little while, so I'm just curious about it. And from what I've read online, it's not widely like recognized or credited as being like a real thing. People kind of will criticize it sometimes as being kind of like snake oily in a way, because there's no real research backing it up, I guess is what they'll say.
Yeah.
But a lot of people use it, and a lot of people swear by it, and I'm kind of just learning about it now and delving into that. And it's an interesting subject either way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, research can do so much. I mean, really, that's one of the reasons, mindfulness and meditation in North America has picked up, because now we have something that backs it up. People want proof, right? It's like, why should I put the effort on something if I don't know it's going to help me?
Yeah, which is, I think being skeptical it can be healthy to an extent. I think, just to have something at blind faith and just like, sure, you could get into trouble that way. So having a healthy skepticism can be beneficial, you
Mm.
know. And one last thing I wanted to get into before we wrap this up,
Yes.
and maybe we'll touch on it now, and maybe we'll have you back or something
Oh,
to get into more detail, but you're also a laughter yoga instructor.
That's right.
That's hilarious. You just laugh saying that. Look, you can't even help it.
See, neurons that fire together are
wired together.
right?
Yes,
There you
right.
go. It's
You
happening
tell
right
him,
now.
you tell him that
Yeah.
role. He's like, yeah. It's look, you can't stop.
I love it.
Yeah. So
You know-
tell us, what is laughter yoga, and how does it work? And you're not only a teacher, but you actually teach teachers.
That's right.
You're a training teacher or whatever. So
That's right.
really cool. How long have you been doing this for?
Started in 2007, so 8 years now. It was created by a physician, a medical doctor in India. His name is Dr. Kataria, in the early 90s, and he was doing writing an article looking at laughter as a best medicine. And that prompted an idea of how do we create a system to get people to laugh for no reason. So it evolved slowly. It started as, people just stood and shared jokes, but that didn't last very long because sometimes jokes are not funny and sometimes they're offensive.
Sure. Not funny to everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
Then he came across actually research that said, wait a minute, it makes no difference if the laughter is real or fake. The body doesn't know the difference. The benefits are the same. So even if you fake it, you're getting the same benefits. So he created a system we do exercises to generate laughter, and laughter become contagious. Even if you're in front of someone and they yawn, you'll yawn, or I smile, you can help. It's like we have mirror neurons in our brain that kind of replicate things. So I smiled because how I got into it, I was actually at a meditation retreat, and it ended, and someone was laughing, and the laugh really caught me. I thought, And then we started talking, and he said, I do laughter yoga. And I thought, laughter, what does that mean? Like you do like downward dog and laugh? Like,
Yeah.
And he said, no, just come try it. And I tried it. It was a very stressful time in my life, and I was actually in my doctorate work, and I was very like, okay, now I'm academic. I don't do silly stuff anymore.
Yeah.
And it was intimidating for my brain, because you have to let go of the self-critical voice. What are people saying about me right now? I'm laughing for no reason. I laughed so hard that first time I tried it. I said two things to myself. I miss laughing like this. And the second thing I said, I'll never do this again.
Yeah.
And
now I decided to give it a chance, go back. The more I did it, like we're talking about repetitive, the more I noticed changes. It just brought more ease in my life. I can laugh more. It brought back that childlike playfulness that we all have. But as we grow, it's like, now it's time serious. Enough, be serious. No, let's get to...
What are some of the physiological responses when you actually do laughter yoga? What actually happens to the body?
Well, endorphins get released in the body, so which support, again, the relaxation response. Now, the other interesting thing, if you think about, I'm going to cover this here for a moment. So when we go ha, 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 or laugh, ha, 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 it's an exhale.
Sure.
Laughter, if you really look at it, is a prolonged exhale.
Right? Yeah.
Which will activate the parasympathetic nervous system.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and they've done research on that. They call it heartful laughter. So it's, 10, 15 minutes of the deep belly laughter, but releases all these endorphins.
Interesting.
That's why it will feel natural for some people, and some parts of the session aren't.
Right.
But at the end, you're laughing.
I was going to say, do you buy And when you're doing a typical class,
Yes.
do you find that even if it takes time and like you're doing a fake laugh at
Yes.
first, do you find it will actually spontaneously turn into like a contagious, authentic laughter?
Yes.
Does that usually happen?
Yes.
Cool.
This is what happened for me. Sometimes people happens to them the first time. Sometimes they try a couple of times. But that's exactly, we all know how to laugh.
Yeah.
I mean, you just have to look at babies.
Yeah.
They don't have, see, humor for us is a construct, right? So, did it happen? Ha 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 ha. We laugh. Babies don't have a construct, but they have the ability to laugh for no reason. So we all have it, and laughter yoga taps into that.
Cool. That's really
So
cool.
there's a lot of actually clubs in town that offer it. I teach it for free at SFU
Sweet.
for anyone, any student or faculty, so they can just join
Sweet.
there. And I do training with a co-facilitator that helps me. She's amazing, actually.
Cool.
I help her too. We're co-facilitating.
Yeah.
And we do it twice a year for anyone who wants to become a certified laughter yoga leader.
How long does that take?
That's a weekend.
Oh, wow.
So it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Sweet.
There you go.
Because I trained with Dr. Kataria. I was certified by him.
Nice.
So
That's awesome.
You have
part of my
direct- you have
vision.
direct lineage.
direct lineage to laughter. I'm
Yeah.
hooked up.
Perfect.
That's so cool. Cool. Well, I won't keep. I honestly just saw a parking person out there, so I'm like.
They're
okay,
walking.
That's my cue
Oh,
from the.
there
That's
you
good
go.
awareness. You're mindful.
Oh, yeah.
I like
Yeah,
it.
he's good.
They-
Mike's very mindful.
Thank you.
It was just like, okay, that's the cue to wrap it up.
That's right.
So just to go over, it's drkasimalmashat.com, drkasimalmashat.com. He's got a practice in North Shore, does laughter yoga at SFU, and it's the mindfulness-based stress reduction programs that you teach a lot about with your practice as
That's
well.
right.
So,
And I teach them. So depending on when this airs, there's one. They can look on my website for the next one. But there's
Great.
one starting this weekend. So
okay, cool. Yeah. Well, we'll get this out probably next week or so. But great. So check them out. That was really fun, really informative. And actually,
Thank you.
I know this conversation actually felt more conscious. I'm not just saying that. It felt more present. Just the way we were interacting, the three of us felt really cool. So
Yeah.
I think your energy kind of brings that out with people too. I'm not
Thank you.
just saying that. So thank you for coming on.
thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome.
Thank you for inviting me and for the great work you guys are doing.
Cool.
Thank
And would
you.
you come back, you think? Would you want to do it again?
Yes, yes.
All
Good.
right.
All right. Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks again. And until next time.
Yeah, until tomorrow.
Till tomorrow.
Twice.
But they won't know that.
They know now. Get ready, folks.
All right. To whatever it is.
To whatever is.